Hello, today's talk is on England and power projection of a medium-sized power. Well, England might be part of the EU, but it's still very much an independent country. It's also very much coordinates its foreign policy with the United States. But what direction would I take England in if I was in charge? Well, fundamentally, if we could get our economy straight, this is what needs to happen first. We need to become a productive economy that actually produces things, and this could be done through nanotechnology and fusion power, as I've said often in my other talks. We could also increase our agricultural input by using the forest garden method of farming, whereby you have many different levels of food crops, so that you have a sort of garden effect, and you could produce for 5 people per acre rather than 1 person per acre with just traditional cereal crops. Now, of course, we would still be producing cereal crops, and so therefore some of our land would still be put over there. An interesting idea I heard from Pierre Elliott Trudeau's site. Check it out; it's very good. He does lots of talks on politics as well. Is the idea of energy credits. Therefore, you would be given an energy credit, and at the age of, say, 21, your age of maturity, and this would entitle you to use anything any service or good, and therefore you would have access to that. Would this mean the end of war? He seems to think yes, and I'd like to believe it, but I'm a little bit pessimistic at the moment because of the seeming irrationality of people in the periphery. What is talked down to as the periphery. Of course, they're not the periphery to themselves, but we will use that term. Why would we need to go to war at all if we had these systems? We could trade with people, and we could increase trade throughout the realm. Well, for a big power like the European Union or America or China, their economic power is so great, and their cultural power is so great, that they could maintain order on the peripheries of their regions by simple weight of their civilization. But for a medium-sized power like England, then we're going to have to expand in the world. And to do this, we're going to need a navy. And we're going to need a much larger navy than we have at present. At the moment, they're building 2 carriers. Now, you're going to need also proxies by which you can control certain areas. The recognition of other great civilizations. Now, I would say 2 civilizations that need recognition are Russia and Iran. Iran is an Indo-European country. It has a completely alien religion to us, but it is a Indo-European country with traditions and language similar to Europe, and its always traditional role has been to control Central Asia and the Middle East. What England needs to do is to trade, and to secure trade, to fend off irrational actors like the Somali pirates, who we can't negotiate with. You're going to need to have a large navy. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have British bases all around the world, but you can ask with permission from large regional powers, say like Iran or India or China, that you can have bases that you can use to replenish, or you can have treaties where you can use their ports to replenish goods for your navy. And of course, you can always have your own ships sent from home ports to support your navy at sea. Now, the use of naval power and air power brought together is going to be very important, because you need to be able to project power. As a smaller economic power, you can't always use your cultural and economic power to win people over. Sometimes you will have to use military power or the threat of it. Um, the the key point of military power is as a deterrent. Once you use military power, you've shown a failure of politics and negotiation and diplomacy, and that is a sign of weakness, actually, rather than a sign of strength. You should try as much as possible not to have an interventionist foreign policy, but try and get people to welcome you. If you're doing aid projects, if you're doing road building projects, if you want them to welcome Western civilization. Is it the role of Western civilization to spread all over the world? I would like it to, but is it right? The key point for any civilization is to survive and to find the best strategy to survive. A bad mistake, even the slightest one, can open up a whole world of hurt, as we've seen from Iraq. We didn't go into Afghanistan with 600,000 troops, we went in with 6,000 troops. Look where it's got us. Instead of being ruthless, we didn't do enough. Why is England dependent on the United States for air transport? We've only got 2 air transport aircraft. Well, that's because we're a weak economic power. Why are we relying on Germany to build our only 2 carriers? Haven't we got people in this country that could build them? It's because in some regards we've slipped behind in science and technology. We need to be able to project our power out there, even if we don't intend to use it, even if we intend to use it as a deterrent. And that's what it's supposed to be, man. When you're getting people like the West Side Boys taking hostages, not because they're suffering from the oppression of Britain. We never oppressed the West Side Boys, but they took our hostages because they wanted something from us in Sierra Leone. They weren't rational actors. People like the Iranians you can have a conversation with. People like Hezbollah you can have a conversation with and you can negotiate with. People like the Israelis, some of them you can negotiate with. They're not irrational actors, but there are gangs out there, and that's what they are, gangs and pirates who you can't negotiate with. You must try, but at the end of the day, if they're uncivilized and they can't be negotiated with, you're going to have to use military force, as I said again. So I am optimistic for the future in some ways about England, and in other ways I'm not. I think for a time we're going to have to be part of the European project to build ourselves up, and then we can go on an independent strategy of our own if the European Union should let us secede. And that's the talk. Thank you, YouTube, for listening.